All right, hope you guys are having an awesome day. I'm Rob Foster, this is Casey Music Talk. Today we have a singer and a longtime member of the Kansas City music scene, Lori Tucker. How you doing?
I'm doing wonderfully well, thank you.
Sweet. I cannot think for the life of me where we would have met. It might have been out at Everett's Jam, probably,
I
or
can't
somewhere.
remember.
Yeah, or I might have seen the Wild Women. Maybe that was.
It's almost
Yeah.
like I think I've always known you.
Mm-hmm.
But
Nice
I don't
to
know
say, yeah.
where
Yeah.
when, I have no idea. But
I know a couple times when I got to play with you was at Everett's Jam.
Oh, it's
you know,
wonderful.
it was always nice to have you down there. You're always really you look like a pro, just dealing with the jam. You know, dealing with all the people there, and definitely obviously when you get singing, you're like, I've done this forever. You know, you looked really confident and ready to go every time I got to play with you. It was really nice.
well, thank you. I enjoyed your playing.
Thanks.
And it has a special touch. It gives an elegance to the song.
Thanks.
And I think everybody likes that. I mean, people like the beat, of course,
Mm.
but there's some things that are just elegant, and you add that.
Thanks. Yeah. Yeah, violin's a weird instrument to throw into jazz. Not a ton of people have done it over the years, but it's kind of a different thing than some of the other instruments. But I don't know you super well. We haven't had a billion conversations, but I know that that you've been talking a lot about that you've done a lot of church music. Is that how you got started?
My mother was choir director.
Okay.
Okay, and she had this high, sweet, lovely voice.
Mm.
And she was sweet. Everything fit her perfectly. She was sweet and loved a lot. And she directed the choir in the Baptist church, First Baptist Church in Liberty.
Mm-hmm.
And I grew up there. And it was just a way of life. I mean, and occasionally she and my brother and I, we tried to harmonize, and we thought, well, that sounds pretty good. Well, maybe we ought to make a trio out of this.
Mhm.
And we did.
Mhm.
And we sang at different churches around small towns. And it was great, because our voices had some of the same timbre,
Mm-hmm.
and it was easy for us to harmonize.
Yeah.
And I think I was about 13, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It was right after I had been selected as a freshman to be in the a cappella choir at high school. They never had a freshman in the choir. Oh, no, it's not all that. It's just that a friend of mine named Jerry Bradshaw, he did not play piano, but he would play the dining room table. And he would say, I'm going to teach you how to sing harmony. And he said, hit that note. It was wonderful. And he and I would harmonize together.
Mm.
So finally, they had a program at church, and he said, I want you to sing a solo and do this duet with me.
Mm.
And my mother said, I didn't know you could sing like that. I said, well,
Mm.
I didn't know it either, really,
Mm.
until Jerry and I have been singing. So she said, well, let's try to see if our voices harmonize. And that's where that came from, that idea, with my brother and my mother and I. But my mother also belonged to a group that they traveled a little bit occasionally. It was the Jefferson Choral Ensemble. Oh, I forgot to mention my mother's name, Mary Alice Houston.
Mm.
And she just loved music. She loved gospel music.
Mm.
I mean, she just loved it. And it just poured out of her. She was always singing. So consequently, I grew up doing that. And my brother, he always remained in the gospel arena, even after he became an adult. And his wife, when he became married, she was an incredible vocalist.
Mm-hmm.
So the group got to be larger. And my daughter sang. Their group just kept growing.
Cool. Yeah.
And occasionally we put on concert, and it would raise money for that venue, and whatever. But we just love doing it for the sheer joy of it.
I've always like it's so funny to me. So many people talk about singing with relatives, and that's definitely a thing, right? You're
It
talking about the
is.
timbre thing. I mean,
Right.
obviously the Jacksons or the Osmonds. I mean, there's been tons of different family bands that. Why is that? I don't get why their voices sound so good together. I've never understood that.
I think it's genetically
Yeah, sure.
the
Yeah.
timbre of the voice.
Yeah.
It's a genetic thing.
Yeah. I just want to know why the genetic thing happens. It's just, I guess, why question it. Just enjoy it, I guess. But yeah, so it sounds like with your mom and your brother, and then you, and then with, you said his wife, and
His
then your,
wife really was
and then their
incredible.
daughter. Like it sounded
My
like you
daughter.
guys, or your daughter, yeah. And so it sounds like you guys. So because my mom grew up in a family band as well. My grandpa played for 60, 70 years, and stuff, and they had kind of a similar thing. But so you guys, so you said your mom did a bunch of stuff at church, but she was also in like basically a band, right? And they were doing shows.
It wasn't a band. It was a large group, about I'd say 35 men and women.
Oh, okay.
And they were a complete gospel group, and
Oh,
they
okay.
occasionally would have to go out of town
Yeah.
or even to the Bahamas.
Yeah, wow.
To perform over there.
Mhm.
They had an incredible group.
Yeah, that's really fun.
It's about 35 people.
Hmm.
And she loved it. She just loved it. But then I had this idea that I really wanted to sing secular music.
Hmm. How'd that go?
It didn't go over that well. It really didn't. I mean, one of the deacons at the church said, are you singing that devil music, girl? Are you? So, yeah, I mean, think of a small town, everybody knows everybody.
Hmm.
And I had no idea that it was going to evolve into a profession.
Hmm.
I wanted it. I
Mhm.
knew I wanted this when I was 5 years old.
Mhm.
I knew I wanted it. But I just didn't know how to vocalize it.
Yeah.
Didn't dare, because I'd already gotten in trouble about it.
What was the devilish stuff you were going to try to sing?
Well, to give you an example, the school was right up the street. We could come home for lunch. We had an hour for lunch. And we had probably one of the first TVs in the neighborhood. Now, we're talking 1951.
Yeah, so that's 50s. Yeah,
1951.
Yeah.
I was 5 years old. And every noontime, there was a jazz program on,
Mhm.
and it showed the live performances of these people. Peggy Lee was on there.
Mhm.
Peggy Lee had those formals, and she had the high heel shoes.
Mhm.
I wanted that dress, and I wanted those high heels. I mean, I wanted to have. So I would dress up in my mother's high heels, and occasionally my aunt would give me one of her cocktail dresses or something. My mother's sister,
Mhm.
and I would dress up. We play dress up, my
Mhm.
girlfriends and
Sure.
I. And I thought, well, I'm gonna make my own dress. I cut up my mother's good towels. They had company towels, and they had everyday towels.
Mhm.
And when the company came, you put out all your best stuff, your good china and all that. You did that. And these are some of my mother's nice towels.
Mhm.
I cut them up and made me a cocktail dress out of them.
Mhm.
I pinned it down the side and tried to sew it a little bit. And then I put it on in my mother's high heels, and I went out on the sidewalk, and there were some boys that lived next door.
Mhm.
I mean, and I told them, stay out here and watch my show. Now I'm gonna do a show.
Mhm.
I want you to tell me how you like it. And so anyhow, I was marching in those high heels and singing, never knew how much you loved it.
Mhm. That's fun.
But when I got to the point of fever, my grandmother ran outdoors. She picked me up by the arm. She whooped me across the yard. And she said, you are fast. You are being too fast. She talked to my mother about it, and she said, I don't have any idea what she was trying to portray to these little boys. But I think we need to really pay attention to this. So anytime I mention singing, nope, shut down. Because they really...
She meant fast, like promiscuous?
Promiscuous.
Yeah, I got you.
They really wanted me to have a good education, all the things you want for your children.
Sure.
Well, and they didn't want anything to spoil that, and I was simply moving a little bit faster than they thought I should.
What age was that?
I was 5.
5, oh, okay, so that was pretty young. Yeah.
I mean, talking about fever. None, you know.
Yeah, you don't know what you're doing. You don't even know what you're doing.
I didn't even know what the term fast meant.
Right.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. But I knew that's what I wanted to do. And I didn't want to look like Peggy Lee. I just wanted to wear those dresses and those high heels. And I wanted to sing and then and someone to listen to my story that I was singing about. That's all I really wanted. And it didn't matter whether there was one person, and it doesn't matter now, or whether it's a whole hall filled of people. It means just as much to me as it would the difference between one couple or 3 couples. It's the same to me as 3,000, 4,000 people. It's the same to me. Because I've come to the conclusion that some songs people just need to hear. I don't know where I had that idea from, but I think that they need to know someone else has felt like that, whether it be joy or I'm blue and I know I'll get well, but I'm blue right now.
Going through the same things you're going through, or
Right.
feeling the same things you are, yeah.
Some people need to hear that occasionally.
Yeah, it's interesting. You were talking about your mom and like. So I mean that's just, yeah. So you cut up her towels and then you're using that to go out and do this devil
Right.
music. You know,
I got in trouble for that. Now my dad, he said, well, maybe it's not as bad as you think. But my dad he more or less acted like an MC when our family would sing in the church.
Yeah.
And
So he was kind of involved too.
a lot of people thought he was a minister.
Uh-huh.
I mean, he had a good, I was blessed with good parents that had good hearts and that worked hard.
Yeah, I mean, because I'm just fascinated, even the non-musical thing is that like we see, not to get off on this, but we see so many parents that either don't give a crap today or they care but they're just way too busy to do anything, or they don't know, or they don't know really right from wrong, and they think they do, but they're sending them down a path that they're thinking like, oh well, it's fine, and it sounded like your parents at least gave a crap about your morality, as growing up. So I mean that's I mean, yeah.
To give you an example, my dad had 5 brothers and 3 sisters, and all of them lived in Liberty except one. So consequently, my cousins more or less, we all grew up almost like sisters and brothers because we all lived within a block or 2 apart. And to give you an example, when the Chiefs first came to Kansas City, they actually had their practice sessions at William Jewell College in Liberty.
Oh wow.
That was really something. Now, by this time, I'm 14. My cousins are about 16. They're the big girls, but I could go with them because folks trusted them. And here we were up at the college watching these football players play. My dad happened to see us. He went to tell the other brothers. They called us all in and had a little talk with us. They just had a nice little talk. We know that you're beginning to look at the boys and all of that. But we do not want any of you up there watching the practice anymore. We'll take you to a game. When they really, and we understand this is normal and all that, but those little boys, they're gonna either make the team or not make the team. And the ones that do make the team, they're not even gonna remember your name. They'll have so many other things on their minds. They're not even gonna remember your name. So please, don't get your hopes up and thinking, ooh, I got a boyfriend,
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah. So on that topic of I've always, when we were doing our church choir in high school, I always thought I wasn't necessarily, my family went to church a lot and we sang a lot of services, and even now if somebody like definitely called me a Christian, I wouldn't get mad or anything. I'm somewhere in there and extremely respectful of it today, more than when I was in college for sure. But when we were in the choir, there was something weird about it because it was almost like we were performing. I don't know if it was similar to yours, but it felt like, because of all the school orchestra I was in, it felt like more a performing group than the word, if that makes sense. Like we were, it was more about that we're gonna get the C sharp right and all this stuff, more than like we're singing to God. And there was, even though I wasn't particularly devout, there was something kind of weird about that to me. And like I'm all high and mighty, like, even though I'm not even like really praying or anything, at the time. But what's really fascinating to me is that the how do you separate, because you were talking about the idea of secular. I wanted to do secular music, and so now when someone like yourself, who's kind of who obviously grew up kind of in the church and definitely with parents with like a certain set of morality, how do you deal with that, with the out at the bars in that world and then in the church world? Like, how do you I don't even know what my question is, but like, how do you deal with that, or what do you think about that? Like,
Well, I think that music has a way of touching people's souls. That's just an opinion of mine. It has a spiritual connection with me in my mind. I don't know how anybody else feels, but in my mind, like you spoke about, the music seemed to take on a strangeness to you. Well, it's because it had a spiritual umbrella around it, that the music went with the words. However, even you weren't saying the words, but you were playing the music, and it all fit together. I don't know how to explain that.
Yeah. I guess maybe another way to put it is like in our band with me and my buddy Scott, we do Doobie Brothers and Eagles and all the Garth Brooks and whatever. But at the end, our last song of the night, we do a gospel medley of "Circle Be Unbroken," "Fly Away," and I can't remember the other one right now. But we do this little gospel medley, and it's, first of all, really cool how many people we see singing. How many people know those songs. Yeah. And so, but in our area, because we're going to more like kind of country places, it's there's a blendy secular thing going on there. They're more receptive, let's say. The country crowd is more receptive.
And they are more receptive.
Yeah, and instead of like, if you, I don't even want to, I won't do a judgment there, but like, maybe a really hardcore rock bar or something might be a little bit more wanting the Metallica or something like that. They're much more okay with like death metal or something. Where it's like the farthest that you can probably get from. But it's funny to me how everybody's kind of not really mad about it, and they haven't really said it to us if they were. But I don't get the impression that we do that stuff, and so it's really interesting when you see that dichotomy of doing that kind of stuff in a bar, that we can kind of bring that to them, that vibe. And I bet that you're kind of doing that probably purposefully, and you don't realize you're doing it, of bringing that kind of spirit in there. Do you feel like you're doing that a little bit?
I do, especially with Alan, because Alan is a church musician.
Right.
And so it's easy for him to play church chorus in the middle of a jazz song.
Right.
And I picked that up immediately
Mm-hmm.
because we come from the same background.
Right.
His mother's 102 and still plays piano and sings.
102.
No. Alan's friend Katie, his girlfriend Katie, she filmed it a couple of weeks ago. Incredible! She's 102 and she can still play the piano, and she was singing along with it.
There's a reason for that.
She's outlived 2 minister husbands. She was married twice, and she outlived them, and they both were ministers. So it's all in their background. So naturally, he's gonna pick that up when he's playing something, and I pick it up too. But we always do at least one gospel song sometime during the evening.
Yeah.
And I'll explain that I feel like, I say now, those of you who don't agree with this, it's all right. Now's your time to go to the ladies' room, the men's room. I said, but I have to praise God. I have to. And we'll do something like Total Praise, or like more contemporary, Thank You, Lord, for all you've done for me. It's a Hawkins song. There's a quite contemporary.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll just do Amazing Grace. It's what my heart feels at that moment. I always go with the flow. I rather go with what I feel at that moment and not pass up that opportunity. I don't feel like they have to believe as I believe. No, I don't feel like they should be put on anyone. I'm just expressing how I feel, and I always say, would you mind if I did one gospel? So.
Yeah, you look at it not wanting to kind of
No.
shove it down their throat or something. Yeah.
And then we'll come back with something real light, like this will be.
Here's another question. I didn't put this on the sheet, but since we're on this subject, is that I've wanted to talk more with different people, and I've had a couple people on that have been willing to talk, but drugs and alcohol are a big thing with musicians. It's been a big thing for years, and I wish I could have some more people on that have had, everybody has their stories about either themselves or bandmates that they had to let go, or something, or crazy things because of alcohol that have happened at a show. And I wonder, I think Wynton Marsalis was talking about this on that Ken Burns show, where he was saying that it's so extreme, the stimulation part of music is so extreme that you go into a whole nother thing, and you get your stimulation, but when that music's done, it's done. And then you're back to having to hear all of your crap in your own head, and and so that's why the Parkers of the world and Miles Davis and all these people, the Coltrane and all these guys, Jim Morrison, etc., laundry list of people have to go get that heroin fix or that alcohol or whatever. And I wonder, and it sucks because especially rock and roll has always been sort of the whole vibe has been definitely not purposefully anti-church, but pretty close, and so it's about rebelling, the whole
let's
point
have a party.
of it. Yeah, let's have a party, and I'm not
through with the party.
I'm not doing this button anymore, 1950s or something, I'm not tucking this thing anymore. Screw you, and so I wonder if that's a thing that, going back to a little church, if it wouldn't hurt a lot of people, is kind of my punchline to that whole thing, and that's kind of what I'm getting at about the coming out into this world, and it's a lot of drinking and stuff like that. I've smoked weed for 13 years, and I quit in 2014, and kind of had my substancey years, and now I have a different perspective, but I don't even know what my question is. But that's just a.
It's all right. It's interesting.
Passionate opinion, but
it's a good passionate opinion.
Yeah. But I wonder if a lot of people would sort of that's lacking in the in the music scene. It's been so secular since the '60s. It's been kind of secular.
No,
I don't know.
I do. When people ask me, or when a couple of the servers have asked me before, I said, Miss Floyd, do you drink at all? And I said, well, yeah, baby, I do. And so she, well, when people want to buy you drinks, but you always tell them that you just rather wait till you got off because it's hard to remember all the words.
Yeah,
which is
sure.
true.
Yeah.
And they said, well, when do you drink? I said, oh, girl, I'm a nightgown wino. And they laughed about it because occasionally I'll have a glass of wine, and Ham and I'll sit up and talk about the job after I get home. We'll sit up and talk a little bit because he's been an awesome percussionist and gotten the opportunity to play with a lot of people. Hamstrong is his name, and he's been a sound engineer for 1,000 years, and but he had a massive brain bleed stroke. So all these things changed, but he likes to go out and with me and enjoy, and people are happy to see him, and he's happy to see them. He misses all of it, but once in a while I'll have a glass around here and say, well, you've had your glass. In other words, it's time for you to go to bed.
You're one.
Yeah, you've had your glass. So once in a while I will and just sit and talk with him for a little bit. Because he was playing for Aretha before he had this stroke. And she called. Wanted to know, was he going to be able to play with her? You know, she came anywhere near Kansas City, like St. Louis or Wichita or wherever. And I said, he can't this year, maybe next year. That was 11 years ago. So he has lasted that long.
Wow.
And he was with us the other day with the Wild Women.
So speaking of them, I had Millie on about a month ago. You know, your good buddy Millie, and her and I had a really good conversation. And so tell me a little about the Wild Women.
The Wild Women were really kind of created by Geneva Price and Myra Taylor, who was at that time in her late 80s. Myra had sung in 32 countries, had a hit record out in 1946. And I mean, she had just been all over the world, had done 2 USO tours.
Wow.
Yeah, that was incredible. And it just seemed so natural to her. And she's been performing since she was 14 years old.
Yeah, so she's been doing this forever.
Forever.
Yeah.
And she had all types of stories.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she and Geneva, they met up with Millie and recruited her. And then there was another lady named Mary Moore. And they performed as the Wild Women first for about 2 or 3 years around Kansas City. And then Mary Moore was accepted into Yale's writing school. And she was in their program. And she had written a couple of one-woman plays. That, to me, that's real talent. And to keep the audience interested, you know.
Right.
And they needed somebody to take her place. And they called me and asked me would I be interested. And I went out and met with them, and we did a few songs that did a little harmony, and Mary was there too. And Mary thought that I would be a good fit. And she said, now, I might be gone for over a year. I don't know how long this will last. None of us know. But it just grew and grew and grew. And so that was in 2003 was when I joined the group. I think
so 20 years with them, yeah.
Right, 2000. But I already knew Millie, but I had just recently met Miss Geneva, and I was performing with Everett at a brunch over on the plaza, and Geneva and Myra came, and she wanted to introduce Myra to me, and I was delighted. I'm glad they asked me.
Mm-hmm.
I really am. I've learned so much.
What have you learned?
Okay, number one, I've learned to keep reminding myself, you are an instrument, your voice is an instrument, and you are a part of a group
Mm-hmm.
that has to be concise when we sing harmony, or it's not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, but the actual feeling of enjoying it, it automatically happens.
Mm-hmm.
Even at times when we're not at our best. And what I mean by that is that women, we operate on emotionalism. Men operate on practicality. It's true. I'm glad we're different, but we're not always at our best.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I've had to choke my child or something. But not really. I'm just kidding. I'm going a little far out there, but
I'm saying what I want to do. No, I'm not going to do it.
Or give one of those warnings like my mother used to. Do not roll your eyes. They can go around to the backside of your head if you're not careful. Do not roll your eyes. And I was never struck in the face or anything like that.
Girls give them a little attitude.
Oh, girls have attitude. Well, big girls have attitude also.
How do you like? That's something interesting because I've never one country band I was in. The guy's wife was in the band, and I don't know. That's the only band I've ever been in with a female in it. And I've heard one guy was joking that you had. My buddy was always joking that the one lady who was in the band, they go on the road trip and she was with the singer, and then she comes back and she's with the bass player, so that, just silly stuff, just the weird stuff. Or his girlfriend is now with the, like the have you what have you noticed is the difference between, if there is any, between like a kind of basically mostly female group, or I know you've played with a lot of guys before, but is there any like different? I mean, you just mentioned sort of a little bit of a emotion, or
we have women that sing together or do anything together. We really try to be. I think most female groups, whether they be business groups or whether they are musical groups or whatever, even actresses or something. We really are very conscious of each other's feelings. We really are. We're not conscious of men's feelings, but we're conscious of
damn, no, I'm just kidding.
But we're conscious of women's feelings with each other, because the one thing about keeping a group together with women is that we have to be like that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I'd say guys, like when it gets really bad, we start caring. When it's something that's really egregious, we do, it's not like we're all narcissists and we don't have any, we don't understand, emotion from another person. But like, that's definitely different, because guys, we're just kind of like, this is the job.
Go in,
screw your feelings, let's do this. Like we have a job and whatever, all right, here we go. And that's really interesting that you talked about that.
And the one thing I liked about our rehearsals is that we would get the work done, but then later we would eat and talk and just enjoy each other.
Yeah.
Just enjoy. I've got to call Millie when I get home. A friend of ours passed that I didn't know had passed. And he was living down in Florida. And I happened to have the number of this gentleman I was talking with to ask him about doing a job with me down the road. And he said, and he was talking about his band, and he said, I sure do miss, I'll name the guy, Chris Clark. We played together a long time, and I really miss him. and he died the other day. I said,
Oh, he did. The
what?
piano player, Chris.
Yeah.
I know Chris.
I didn't know
I
that.
played a foundation with him a couple of jams, and I've seen him many times. Yeah, wow, I didn't know he passed. He's a great piano
Well, he
player.
went in for heart surgery and died on the table.
Wow. Because he'd moved down to like Mississippi or Alabama or Georgia or something, right?
Florida.
Florida. Okay,
That's
it
where
was
his
Florida.
sister lived.
Yeah.
Now
Okay.
he's from the islands.
Oh,
They're
really?
from the Bahamas.
Yeah.
So Florida's closer
Yeah.
for them to get anywhere they want to go.
He's a great piano player. I always loved
Great,
listening.
great. I was married to Tom Pender, and we had a group called Shining Light, and he played with us for quite a while. Yeah.
Wow. The one other thing that I've noticed that you guys kind of do with the Wild Women is that I'm always fascinated by basically frontmen and how people deal with the audience. Because the guy that I play with is really good with the audience. Like, he's too comfortable up on stage. You know, he's yapping at them, saying he does. Because I've always thought about this whole. We've talked about this on the show a lot of bands and acts, right? In my opinion, and people not like me saying this, but I think we've got about 96% bands in Kansas City, but we don't have hardly any acts.
Right.
You know, Samantha Fish was an act. People wanted to come see her. Hot blonde chick, she's jumping up and down, playing pretty good guitar. Lonnie McFadden is an act, right? And I think you guys would have that kind of thing too, where there's a whole bunch of like 50-year-old blues bands. You know, they're great. They've been playing blues for 35 years, all four of these guys, but they're four guys up there playing blues, and they don't really address the audience. They're just kind of play. All right, we're done. You know, and I know when you guys get up there, you're yapping at each other. You know, and so like, how do you? What's your strategy like? I don't know if strategy is the right word, but like, what's your guys' deal with like talking to the audience? Because so many bands don't do that, or they're not very good at it.
With the Wild Women, whatever happened on stage, that's what we dealt with. And it would become part of the show sometimes. Like one time I was going to sing this song called Pride and Joy. Okay. Now I'm thinking of the Stevie Ray Vaughan version in my head, Pride and Joy. And I stood up to sing, and I was talking to the audience, and we all injected our own personalities up on the audience. And Mama said, "That's my song." And I said, "Shh," like that. And Geneva did it the same way. And I said, "Pride and Joy, Stevie Ray Vaughan style." And so "That's my song." I said, "It is not." And finally, the audience could hear this on the mic, and they began to pick up. I said, "Mama, if you don't let me sing this song, I'm going to sit on you." Well, I was 50 pounds heavier than I am now. A lot heavier. And I acted like I was sitting down on her. I had a pair of slacks. And I just barely just kind of held on, you know, without touching her legs. And she said, "Get off of me. You're the reason I'm in a wheelchair. Get up."
In front of the audience, right? Right? And then, so, yeah.
So I went on and did the song, but then she said, "I'm going to sing my Pride and Joy." So the audience loved it.
Yeah.
And she was 90 then. She said, well, she did all of that marching and shaking with them high heels on. She said, "I can do that too." She said, and then she said, "Now," she said, and she had her handkerchief, and she was talking about the song. It was great. Oh, I stood up. They probably cut my head off.
No, yeah. It might have.
That's all right.
Yeah. That's funny. So you're having this war on stage, but you just use it, right?
Whatever happens on stage, use it. Just use it. Just let it go. It's not life or death. It's part of us. It's who we are.
Yeah. You like. So there's like. Psychologically, that's weird because there's like a ton of like ego going on right then, but there's not.
No,
you know what I mean? Like you wouldn't all stand up and do that whole thing without, you know, well, I'm gonna do it. You know, I mean that's ego, right? I can do better, right? No. That's ego, but you guys are like doing it in a really super playful way. It was two
different songs, actually.
Yeah.
But they were both called Pride and Joy.
Well, I'm thinking of a different situation with a different bunch of people, how they would have blown that up or suppressed it and then be raging after the show or something like that.
No,
You know what I
can't
mean?
do that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can imagine some people getting mad about don't talk like that to me or what, different bandmates and stuff. And I think that's so cool that you guys were like taking it seriously, but not.
No,
You
we
know what I
didn't take
mean?
it
Yeah.
I mean, it could have gone that way, but
Mhm.
we didn't allow it, especially on stage. We tried to avoid letting anything go too deep.
Right, right. Well, I mean, you guys take it seriously in the sense that you're talking about it's a group and you got to be on your part. So in that sense, you're taking it seriously, right? But the other stuff that's really cool. I mean, you can only do that with some, pretty good friends, I would say, and
Right.
just
Well,
mentality. Yeah,
by then we had become family.
yeah, yeah,
We
yeah.
really had.
Yeah.
I mean, we opened up at the Plaza lighting.
Wow,
And to us it was a big deal.
wow. What year was that?
Oh my goodness. I don't even remember.
Yeah.
I want to say 2000,
Yeah, it's
maybe 10,
yeah. A while
maybe a little
back.
earlier
Yeah.
than that. Maybe a little earlier than that.
Pretty cool
But
honor.
we were really excited.
Yeah.
I mean, it was 70 degrees on Thanksgiving night,
Wow.
and there were 80,000 people in the
Mhm.
plaza. And we felt honored to be there. And when we got there, Millie said, I can't believe we're here. This is exciting. I said, yes, it is. I said, but I'm sitting on the end. And I said, well, that's a long way down. And I said, I said, well, I better move back because my hair is big and my body's big, and they won't even see the three of y'all. I said, so I'm going to scoot my chair back a little bit. And Millie said, well, I don't care how we're seen on TV. I care how we're going to sound on TV. This is going to be filmed and everything. I said, yes, I know. And so Myra said, well, that's all I care about too. I said, no, you're not telling the truth. I said, because, no, y'all love the camera. No, just stop it right now. I said, well, that's okay. I'm the only one who wants to be on TV. I'm going to be on TV. I'm going to be on TV. And they said, and Millie said, now you stop and act, straighten up and act right. And so I scooted back. I tried to act like a citizen. Well, during the course of the show, the band director, Carrie Strayer, always danced with one of the female artists. So he came over and he asked me to dance on one of the songs. And I turned around and looked at the three of them and I did like this. I was taunting them. And see, that's when you really know that you're the bad actor, when you know what you're doing and you know better. So
That's funny.
as he swung me around, we were really dancing. I thought, I'm gonna be on TV, and we're really dancing. Look at this. And he swung me around. I landed flat on my rear end, and I could not get up. My husband, since he knew the TV crew, he was down there with them because he knew all the breaks in the songs, who was going to sing the solo next and all that. So he was running sound too. So he was down there in the pit with the TV crew, and he said, when I fell, he said, it looked like slow motion, and like, he said, and I couldn't help you. He said, all I could say was, Jesus, help her up. He said, and I knew he couldn't get you up. If I couldn't pick you up, I knew he couldn't pick you up. You know, him is 6'4", and is a big guy. He couldn't pick me up.
Wow.
But I knew Carrie Strayer couldn't. But finally, I got up to my knees, and I curtsied from my knees. And then I finally was able to get up on my own. And then I really curtsied. And then I got back to my seat, and I looked at Millie and Geneva and Myra, and they were wondering if I was hurt first.
Yeah.
And I said, think everybody saw me on TV? And all three of them did like this at me too. We just started laughing. We could not sing the next song for laughing so hard. She said, "It's good enough for you. It's just good enough for you." It was good enough for me. It really was. We're going to tell this at your funeral. I said, well, you're going to have to outlive me.
Oh, yeah.
You're just going to have to.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing about that that's really interesting is that hearing different people's opinion, like the other day, I had a little, she's probably fourth grade or third grade, and she was doing, a student of mine, she was doing her concert for her parents, and she was going to have all these people come over, like grandparents and stuff.
Right.
And the thing that she wanted to make sure is that, do I get to wear that little dress that and that's just hilarious to me, because that's the absolute last thing that I would have thought of as a guy. Like, I just didn't, I don't care what I'm wearing and stuff. And it was so funny how she had, and then a couple of friends came over too. So she brought 3 of her little friends in third grade, grandparents, and then maybe a couple other people. So she has this big crowd. She liked it a little too much, right? And then the next time we did a little thing, and we found out that her grandmother and her mother, and that's it, was going to be there. And she's like, oh, I'm like, oh, you like the attention.
Yeah, the ego already.
Yeah, the ego, yeah. But that's so funny that it was such, like, the visualness. It sounds like it's a little bit bigger for, I'm stereotyping, but a little bit of a thing for women. And it's not as much for men. That's just funny to me. That's interesting,
We care how we look and we dress. Well, I used to sing that song, Girl Talk. We like to chit and chat about the dresses we'll wear tonight. We chew the fat about the neighbors and the neighbors' fights. Inconsequential things that men don't even care to talk about become essential things that women find so apropos. It's in the plan, it's in the stand. It's only girl talk. But it is girl talk.
Yeah.
It's important to us how we look.
So here's another one for you. Like, you've been singing, been singing a while. I know that you've been in a lot of different bands and kind of different, almost different eras of music or whatever. Is there anything that you're seeing today in some of the new kind of generation, even up to like 40? I'm a 40-year-old myself, but even us, the Matt Hoppers and the Andrew Letts and all the pretty great musicians, the younger musicians. And is there anything that you're seeing that's like different now with the scene or the player? You can kind of answer that however you want, but
I think the young musicians in Kansas City, they are really very good. I think they are.
There's a lot of them,
and there's quite a few, and they are really, and they're well read. In other words, they actually concentrate on everything. They don't just play it for the fun. I admire them and I appreciate them, and it's a pleasure to play with any of the young musicians that are out right now. I applaud them. So heartedly I applaud them. I do.
It's so interesting that because when the 70s was hitting, rock was still like kind of birthing. Even though it was 10, 20 years from Elvis or whatever, it was still like in its like birth. And now we look back at those as like classics or whatever, that said, the classic rock area in the rock realm anyways. But like now, so the point is like the music of the 70s, there was like rock-wise, there wasn't a ton to take from, like to learn there was other classics for sure, but like now I can just say from my generation, like we have all of the rock wise, we have all of the 90s. There was still a lot of good rock going in the 90s. There was the 70s, we have 60s, we have the kind of Elvis, Chuck Berry or whatever era, and so there's all that, so we can like look back and like be appreciative of the past, but in like rock, for example, there was no past, sort of, in a weird way. Now jazz is way different. Like in the 60s and 70s, you guys had even from the late 1800s, there was like a tradition and an old, if you want to call it that way. But do you get the impression that like a lot of the Matt's really great, just as an example, but Matt Hopper. But do you get the impression that a lot of those guys, like the new people, like know like Coleman Hawkins and some of Billy Holiday, and so I get the sense that they all like know all those people. Do you know what I'm saying?
They study.
Yeah.
They study this.
Mm-hmm.
They study their backgrounds and they study everything about what makes them different. What makes they study the things that make someone pleasant to listen to, soothing to listen to, or exciting to listen to. They study all that, along with all the other qualifications that they really prepare for, but they really are well read.
Yeah.
Most of the younger musicians here in Kansas City,
Right.
they're good too. They're really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm kind of staying in my lane personally with the kind of country rock stuff. That's kind of my thing. I've done a number of bands, but when I go up to like Foundation, I've gone up there 7-10 times, maybe a little more, to go jam with those guys, and if I call my own tunes, I'm okay, but I'm getting up there and I'm like, these guys are pretty good, and I don't know if I'm, and so it's really a pleasure to play with all the people in Kansas City. There's so many good musicians.
They are.
They really are. Are you noticing any? So what would be like one piece of advice for like, let's say a young female singer who's 20, early 20s-ish, or so, younger? Is there anything that you
Just be yourself. Remain true to who you are and what works for you. Everything will not work for you. Some things I would love to be able to sing, but just does not work for me. All right, now, when I first started singing professionally, it was with a top 40 band. So I was learning new music every week. And I was really proud of the first group that I ever played in professionally. And it was top 40, and we were on it. We rehearsed every week, and we knew those songs. We learned it before we came. And anyhow, then later on, we stayed 2 years at Ramada's Rooftop over in Overland Park, and at that time it was the disco era. That was fun. Ooh, that was fun. Boy, I had those hot pants on and high heel boots. Oh, you couldn't buy me for what I thought I was worth. That big afro and all of that.
You couldn't buy me for what I thought I was worth. That's a great line. That's a great line.
No.
That's funny.
Oh, it was a wonderful time of life. And I was in my 20s. Oh, my goodness. But I couldn't have done that. But my folks, they were so good. They lived 2 blocks up the street from where I lived. And so consequently, my daughter could stay with them in the evenings because we were working 5 nights a week.
Wow.
And I worked in the daytime too.
Wow.
Yes, indeed.
So talk about that. So how was that with being out at night so much? I mean, you said that she had like a place to go basically, but how did you feel about that, being out at nights when other people would be there with them?
We had a schedule. We had to adhere to the schedule because it wouldn't work any other way. The minute that I got home, I had a full-time job in the day. I worked for the government.
Oh, wow.
I think I was the first black stenographer they hired at Lake City, and that was in 1966. I had a 5-month-old baby, and
it's right in the thick of the 60s right there, wow.
66, and they had a lot of, on a government contract, 12% of the population of employees should be ethnic of some sort to make it even for everyone. And that's one of the requirements on a government contract.
Mhm.
And anyway, they said, well, we get a lot of people in here that can really type fast, but they don't take shorthand.
Mhm.
And so my ex-husband, my first husband, he happened to be in the office filling out some insurance papers or something, I don't know. But anyhow, he said, my wife does. Well, she does? Yeah. He said, bring her in tomorrow and we'll give this a shot.
Mhm.
I had just started, I had just gone to work on a new job downtown in Kansas City, and I loved my job. I loved it. I was a sales manager secretary, and I just loved it. And I loved being downtown.
Mhm.
Well, anyhow, I went. They dictated 2 letters. I took them down, typed them up, gave them back to them, and they said, these are perfect. And
Take that. No, I'm just kidding.
2 days later, I had a badge on, had a physical, but I worked there 28 years altogether.
Wow.
Well, it wasn't all 28 at once. What happened was I worked there 10 years, but I had to finally make a decision between music and the daytime job.
Mm.
I chose music. I thought, oh, I hope I just don't go under.
Mm.
But at that time, bands were booking contracts for a year. That was not unheard of, especially with hotels.
Right.
I worked at Top of the Crown with Everett DeVan for 2 years.
That have been the 90s? Then?
And that was in 1970 something.
Oh, 70 something.
Yeah,
Oh, I thought you meant. Oh, I thought you meant after the 28 years. That's why I was confused.
No, I'm
Yeah,
going back and
yeah,
forth.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like a movie, you gotta keep up with it.
We've talked about that a lot on the show too, is that sometimes people kind of go for it hard and maybe they went to college, let's say, and they just took a year of practicing and they're gonna become a studio guy, or they're gonna become, and they just do music full time and they go, I'm an artist, that's it, I'm going for it, and this is it.
No.
And then we have other people that kind of take a more, maybe what's the word, a more, not secure, what's the word I'm looking for, but they want to take a more security kind of a route, going
Right.
having a huge
Right.
day job, and then that frees them up to not have to do crappy gigs they don't want to do. Except, there's a lot of stuff that it frees up for them. So it sounds like you for a while at least obviously went and did the
I did both.
day job.
But I couldn't
Yeah.
have done that without my parents' help. I really couldn't.
Mm.
And we really had a schedule we had to stick to, because as soon as I got home, and I knew exactly what I was wearing for that night. We didn't wear the same things all the time.
Right.
Exactly what I was wearing for that night, and I helped my daughter with her homework, and then my husband say, okay, now, you can't look at Little House on the Prairie. That was her punishment in case she
Yeah,
didn't get
that's
everything done. She had little chores to do as
That's
well.
funny.
That was it.
Yeah.
She loves Little House on the Prairie right to this day, and she'll be 56 tomorrow.
Mm.
56 tomorrow.
Wow. Yeah, it's funny. We just don't talk about that a lot, about if there's some sort of we talk a little bit about, people will talk about sort of the emotional toll, that music, just being out in the clubs every night and all that kind of stuff.
It was wonderful.
But yeah, it kind of adds up. But we don't talk about, I've talked so much on how they're, like my parents being in the thing and how that affected me now becoming a musician. I mean, you just talked about it earlier about them, singing themselves and how that led to your love. But a lot of times we don't talk about how, being out at night for, years, and so, it's like, that's just interesting to me. I don't know if it is for you, but what that
Well, I
does
was
to
a
the
bad
kid,
actor, because my brother and his wife, they had the audacity to be on a gospel show with Mary Bryson, who was really a well-known artist in Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
She had a gospel show on TV. They were on there every week with her.
Mm.
Why can't you be like your brother? He's such a nice guy. No, you want to sing that devil's music.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it really isn't. It's just beautiful music. Because after the top 40 band they didn't renew our contract, and they wanted to remodel the place, yada yada. I thought, well, I might not ever get to do this again, but at least I did it once, and I'm not sorry I did it. And I really wasn't. I took a couple of jobs working in the daytime, but I wasn't sorry I did it. I wasn't off that stage for 2 weeks, and Everett, the band's agent, who was Jerry Plants, who's still alive, who just had a birthday here a couple of weeks ago, called and said, Are you still singing with that band out at Open Park? And I said, no. I said, our contract's ended. He said, well, we need a singer with this band. Their singer walked off the stage and quit. And that should have told me something right there. Now, wait a minute.
Why did she leave?
I didn't even ask. I thought it was just a one-time thing. He said, we need somebody to just come down and sit in, and that gives them 2 or 3 days time to look for a permanent vocalist. And so they said, because we know that you sing top 40. They said, it's a jazz band. He said, and I said, I don't know if I know enough jazz. I don't know if I know it. And he said, well, pick out 2 or 3 things you do know for sure. That's jazz, and we'll
deal with the rest.
We'll play it off. So went down to Crown Center, and Everett played one song. He said, you know this song? And his intros, a lot of them sound similar. So you really had to listen. I said, yeah, I know that song. I sang it. Thought I was cool. And then he played the intro to another song. You know that? I said, yeah, I sang it. He said, no, you didn't know any jazz. He said, let's talk about this. And he said, no, let's not talk about it. Kent Means said, would you like to have this job? I said, yeah. And they said,
what's up?
Yeah. And I said, I don't know if I know enough songs to last all night. He said, yes, you do. How did you learn these songs? I said, well, my mother, secretly, and I said it like that, she wanted to be a jazz singer, but she was a gospel vocalist.
Right.
Once you're in that arena, no, you cannot. No.
Is she doing a bunch of secular things behind your back?
No, she was just listening. She was just listening. She was just listening, and she had recordings of Sarah Vaughan and Dinah Washington and I can't even think of everybody. But when I would clean her house as a teenager, I would put a stack of records on, and I would just be cleaning. I didn't realize I was learning the songs.
Oh yeah.
I knew all of those songs. Most of the jazz standards, I knew them. But the one thing that they had to tell me is, do not do it like the artist you heard. You make it yours.
Yeah. A lot of people do that, don't they? They kind of have that one that they've heard a lot, and
You make it yours.
Yeah. That's a tricky thing. That's a big thing in jazz that I've learned now, kind of playing it a little bit, is that you can, in classical we recreate.
Right.
And that's what it is. We just Beethoven wrote it this way, and we do it that way, and and we destroy it like in a good way. It's awesome. That's it. This is what it is. But jazz is a whole other deal. Like you're supposed to do it like yours.
I got a good lesson with that because they took me to the foundation. We would leave the top of the Crown. They would be in tuxedos. I had on long gown, and anyhow, we'd be at Town Topic eating the greasy burgers. Oh, that was good. And then we'd go over to the foundation, and then we'd be down there till 2 o'clock in the morning or whatever. And it was the greatest musician. I met a lot of musicians then that have long been gone, of course. But they treated me like I was their new little baby. And they would introduce me to everybody.
That's neat.
They made sure that everybody knew everybody.
Mm-hmm.
You have to know each other and respect each other.
Yeah.
So that part I really loved.
Mm-hmm.
And I was scared too.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I'm scared. They said, no, you got this. You can do this.
Mm-hmm.
You can do this. Come on. You can do it. And I did. I mean, I learned a lot. And I tell you who my mentor was, Betty Miller.
Mm-hmm.
Betty Miller and Milt Abel. Never knowing I was going to know them well. I had no idea. When I was 17, I was going to Kansas City Business College. I graduated early from high school and was going to Kansas City Business College. And so I thought, oh, well. Anyhow, one of my friends, she was an older young woman. She might have been like 25 or 26 to me. That was old. And she said, I want you to meet someone and listen to some friends of mine. Betty Miller, Milt Abel were playing at the Horseshoe Lounge.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody carded you back then.
Mm-hmm.
I had the audacity to tell my parents that I was going to, now I'm 17 now,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to stay over and study with Eva, and I said, and I'll catch the last bus to Liberty. And my mother said, okay, but you know, you got to get up in the morning. I said, I know, it'll be all right. I was at the Horseshoe Lounge smoking a cigarette because I thought that made me look grown, and drinking a martini because I didn't know what else to order. It was horrible too. Just terrible. And,
But you didn't care, right? You were out. You were having the time of your life.
and then I had the nerve to go by myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Betty and Milt, they just smiled at me, and they knew I was trying to be grown up.
Mm-hmm.
But I was liking the music.
Mm-hmm.
I never knew 20 years, I mean not 20, I never knew 15 years later that I would know them really well.
Yeah, wow.
I never knew that.
Yeah, wow.
All things happen, all things are in divine order, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think they fall in a certain way to give you the opportunity to learn about it and to pass it on and share it. I don't think knowledge of any kind is to be kept secret. I think it should be shared. That's only an opinion.
That's deep.
I think it should be shared. No matter how trivial you think it is, someone needs to know that. It may be in a joke. It may be in a telephone conversation, but it's something that someone needs to know.
I was thinking what you said about listening to stuff and not knowing you're sort of memorizing it while you're going, and I felt that way about classic rock. Like my parents had been listening to James Taylor and John Denver and all those, the Carpenters, like they all these 70s bands, and like 101 The Fox. I grew up listening to that with my parents, and
Right.
so like I remember it at one of those blues jams, and somebody calls "Fly Like an Eagle," and I'm like, oh, and I just, and I just start playing it, because I've heard that song a million times, and so I was kind of a similar way, and I've talked to my students about this a lot, that I think that's one of the things that is, not only have I noticed on the show that everybody who's doing this now had some sort of something in the home. Right, their mom was the church director, or their mom taught piano lessons,
Right.
or their dad was in a band, or at minimum, their dad was blasting Coltrane in their childhood, or some, whatever, and they hated it, right? They hated it at the time, and then of course, you hear about those stories that they hated it at the time, and then he passes away, and that's all you want to listen to.
That's
Like so it's like that's a whole nother discussion. But all those, I wish that more people would. The internet's great, TV's great, it's fine, there's a place for it, but when they're sitting there playing, that's what they made us do in Suzuki, right? We had the first book of Suzuki just blaring Go Talent Roadie, Minuet Number One, you know, I mean, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, you know, we were blaring that stuff, and by the time you get to the actual song, you just like destroy it and blast through it, you know, like, and so I wish the more parents would just blare. It can really be anything, you know, country, classic rock, jazz, blues, oldies, gospel, whatever, pop, even pop music is fine, but you know, turn off that TV a couple times a week and just listen to music. I wish some people, because stuff like that can happen, you know.
My grandson, they're in their early 20s, you know, mid 20s, I'll say. My grandson and his girlfriend and my granddaughter, my two oldest grandchildren, Tiffany she's a good alto sax player. Mm-hmm. And she's 4'10". And when she was in high school, the instructor used to say, Tiff, show them how this should be played. And the boys were like 6'2", and she's way down here, and she was I mean, it's really nice. So she has that background of knowing what she would like to do creatively, but since high school, doesn't seem to be interested right now. But we just leave the saxophone in my basement where she knows where it is, because it's going to come back around and you watch and see. Now, grandson writes rap music.
So he's deep in it, yeah.
Not my cup of tea, no, but several of his songs have gotten a lot of attention because they've gotten a lot of hits, because they have a fair amount of music involved in them. He can't seem to get away from that, incorporating both of them. I mean, and rap is usually done over samples of something.
Right.
But sometimes he wants to create his own thing. And it's interesting. It may not be something that I would do, no. But let them be who they are.
Sure. He was influenced by you guys.
Well,
you know,
both of them can actually sing, if they would.
Yeah.
But they really actually can sing and have really nice voices. Of course, it's just like, I mean, I'm a grandparent, so I would be partial, because when I was working in the daytime and the babies were little, one was a year old and the other one was just a few months old, I said, okay, my daughter's going to bring the babies out so y'all can see them. And since we're working at the last building, then we can have a visitor if we all are in the lobby, in the front. So I said, now if my babies look like monkeys or something, you better not let me hear it. I'll turn this place out and won't none of us have a job, okay? When they saw them, they said, oh, they're so cute. They look like dolls. They look like dolls. Because we had them dressed alike and all of that. And, oh, man, but that's the way I feel. Whatever music my grandkids do, I'm going to be partial. It may not be what I would choose for them, because I would like them to learn more structured musical phrasing. I would like that.
Yeah.
But it's not my life.
Yeah.
I've lived a lot of mine already.
Well, what you did will influence them, you know, and it's you know, it's.
And my daughter sings.
Yeah.
And we don't sound anything alike, and that's a good thing. She's her own person.
Yeah. That's back to the jazz thing, where we're just recreating everybody else. Or are you gonna make your, you know, put your stamp on the yeah.
Yeah, she does her own thing.
So we're probably close to wrapping up here. Do you have any other really great stories for us?
Yeah,
I'm sure you probably could.
No, I just feel really, and I'm serious. I have met so many people along the way that have influenced me. I'm grateful. I'm just grateful. Some of them didn't make me real happy, but I didn't make some of them very happy. But later on, when we understood the different things about each other, we're glad to be friends and respected each other. Respecting each other in a group is everything. And admiring each other in a group is everything. It doesn't hurt to compliment each other once in a while. It doesn't hurt. In fact, it's really pretty inspiring. We honored Geneva, Mama Ray, and Julie Turner the other day. It was a really, really nice program. And I noticed how we all complimented each other. Where did you get that song? That's really neat, you know. And Julie said, I wrote it. That's why you hadn't heard it before, because I wrote it. But I mean, it's just that it's good to be a part. I'm glad I'm a part of this. I can't. I could think of a million stories, but I just am just grateful.
Yeah.
I am where I am. I'm 75 years old, and I love it. I feel good, and I just am grateful.
I know it's really easy when you have somebody like Everett in a band, or Alan Monroe, or like my buddy Scott, who it's easy when you play with them so much to not to take them for granted, and that's probably really great to remember to give them compliments once in a while, because there's a reason why you're still playing with them, because they're doing not something that nobody else could do, but they're doing something special. They're great players, and it's easy for a lot of people to get focused on the things that are annoying, those little tiny things that you probably shouldn't be annoyed at, but or that you're blowing up into a bigger problem, and try to keep being grateful, something all of us can probably do a lot better at, I'm sure. And
you know what puzzles me is that when you play with somebody for a long time, sometimes it happens right away. You don't have to play with them that long, but when you begin to think alike, it's like, before I can say the song, Alan's already playing it.
Yeah.
Everett and I used to do that all the time. I said, quit reading my mind. He said, can't help it.
Yeah.
It's just out there.
Yeah, me and Scott start calling tunes too. We're like, this random Eagles tune that we'll play or something, and we're like, we know that we've done four like medium or fast, and we know it's about time for the ballad, and we're going to take it to the limit. We're like, oh crap, I was just thinking that, it's that's really funny. That definitely parts in the songs too. We'll have a handful of them where he'll kind of sit on a vamp a little bit and just kind of sit there, and then we both can I can feel he's doing his fours, and I can feel where that phrasing's coming and stuff. And when you start playing, him and I have done 6-ish years now. But when you get to that 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 15 years, you can start, reading each other's mind. It's just hilarious, on stage, and nobody knows what's happening. He knows it, and you know it. That we're just like,
I tell you something else is strange. You can be apart for at least 10 or 15 years. And go back.
Yeah, and boom.
Meld.
Yeah.
Right together. Like nobody's ever been gone.
Yeah.
No one's ever been gone.
Yeah.
It's just like yesterday. That amazes me.
Yeah, that does too. That amazes me too. It's sank in there hard. When music's one of those weird things with your mind that it's physical and it's mental, it's emotional and it's logical. It's like it's hitting all your stuff and it just sinks hard. And it's memory and it's new and it's like it's everything all at the same time. It's weird. But I know everybody who I've ever heard of that knows you is very respectful, and they're very happy that you're in our scene, and they always have good stuff to say.
I paid
So-
them. I paid them well too. They better talk good about me. I paid
Yeah.
them well. No, I'm just kidding.
But thanks for coming and doing the show.
Thank you for having me. I
Mhm.
really do appreciate this. It's comfortable. What you got to eat, I might say.
Mhm.
No, I got to go home and see about Ham, my husband.
You better do that.
Yeah, I guess so.
That's what we got for you guys. This is Lori Tucker.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
This is Casey Music Talk. We'll be back with another one. I think I got another interview in a couple days, so that'll be up on YouTube soon. So hit the like and subscribe button, and we'll see you guys later.